Welcome to the Jackson Rudolph podcast. I am your host, Jackson Rudolph, and this is episode 36 brought to you by Black Belt Magazine. And today we have the promoters of the Battle of Atlanta. These gentlemen are Mr. Toby, which I believe is over here to my left, and Mr. Greg Ruth, which is right down below me. I think if it shows up the same way it is while we're recording this, that's who it'll be. But anyway, extremely excited to have these two guests. They are huge proponents of the evolution of sport karate and continuing to help this sport grow by promoting a prestigious event like the Battle of Atlanta. So we're extremely excited to have them on the show today. And for those of you that don't know, the Battle of Atlanta 2020 just passed. These were some promoters that were extremely dedicated to making their event happen. And I know a lot of the competitors and fans of the sport really, truly appreciate that. I wasn't able to make it out to the Battle of Atlanta this year myself, but I wish that I had been able to. And I highly, highly, highly recommend their event to anybody considering trying sport karate. You've done sport karate for a long time, but never been. I highly recommend the Battle of Atlanta, and we're going to be recapping the 2020 event today. But first and foremost, I want to give you guys the opportunity to introduce yourselves a little bit. Maybe we'll start with Mr. Toby and then go down to Mr. Greg.
Probably need to start with Mr. Greg because he's been doing this a lot longer than I have. We're really excited. We had a great weekend. It was nerve-wracking, I have to say, probably more so than most events. I think people kind of don't really know the nerves that go into putting on a big event like Battle of Atlanta. And this year had a lot more challenges, to say the least. So, but I'll let my dad talk a little bit about our history with the battle and how long we've been doing it and what our goals with it have been. And I'll let him kind of speak to that.
Well, let's start off with, telling everybody that this was the 52nd Battle of Atlanta. It has a long storied history, and the Battle of Atlanta is very much a legendary name as far as sport karate tournaments goes, throughout the entire world, not just the United States, but I mean, throughout the world. It's very well known everywhere. As Dennis Brown, and I'll quote Dennis, said, if you've not won the Battle of Atlanta, then you're really not a top competitor. So, and that goes back into the 60s and 70s, and it's evolutionized as the sport's gotten bigger and more events have been added. But that was just a quote he had one time that kind of stuck in my mind. But I will say that as far as Truth Entertainment and, Toby and Tommy, his other twin brother, goes, we've really been involved with this thing since about 2011, where we actually just ran the night show for the Battle of Atlanta that year, and then, became a little more involved in 2012 and completely became the sole owner of the Battle of Atlanta in 2013, and we've had it pretty much every year since then. So actually, I just found out from the hotel, I didn't realize it's our 9th year with that hotel there, so it's pretty exciting to know that we've been able to bring, some top quality athletes and some top quality competitors to the city of Atlanta and, be a part of the Battle of Atlanta since actually, we took the ownership of it. So I'm super excited to say that I was very proud of everything that happened this weekend. Yes, it was very unnerving for a lot of people. You sometimes felt like you're out there on this island and everybody was watching you, but it went very well. I've never been so amazed at just how well people were this past weekend. I mean, we put our spectator seats in a certain manner, and of course our biggest fear was they'd be moved all over the place. But I have to be can very proudly say that not one single chair got moved all weekend. It was incredible. So a great experience, and that's kind of how we've been able to, I guess, bring the Battle of Atlanta from where it was back in 2012 all the way up to where it is today. So.
Absolutely. And I can attest to the storied history of the Battle of Atlanta. I think I've been, with the exception of this year, I think I'd been to the Battle of Atlanta every single year since 2005 or 2006. And so Battle of Atlanta was always one of those highlight tournaments for me, especially with its time during the year. It's right in the heat of the season. And it's just such an exciting event to be at because when you step in the ring, when you step on stage at Battle of Atlanta, that you're becoming a part of history just by competing there. And that's one thing that as a competitor and as a fan of the sport, I've always been extremely grateful for. Now we're going to start talking a little bit about the 2020 event in particular. And before we get to the COVID-19 protocols and everything that I know people are definitely going to have a lot of questions about, want to know how it went, I want to start by just talking about the martial arts first, right? And we're going to talk about this from the promoter's point of view and from the sport karate enthusiast, the fan point of view, right? First, from the promoter's point of view, as far as how well divisions were running, I know you guys were doing the sessions and things like that, as well as just hosting some really great competition. I heard a lot of really great feedback on just how good the competition was at the event. So as promoters, how would you recap the weekend, maybe in a few moments or a few takeaway thoughts?
Well, I would start by saying that obviously numbers were down. I mean, let's just be honest. That's not player. It's not a normal year for Battle of Atlanta, but we still had our team there. We still had all of the guys that have come and helped build the Battle of Atlanta to what it is today. And these are a lot of behind the scenes people that don't get a lot of attention and a lot of publicity, but they work very, very, very hard to make the customer experience the best it can possibly be. So with that said, and we can come back to that in a minute, but the competition was pretty good all the way throughout. And it was, like in most tournaments, it's in pockets. You see some really good division here, really good division here. This one's like, oh, well, that's okay. We saw some great stuff in team fighting, first and foremost. Friday night we had team fighting, and, we didn't have the number of teams we normally have, but the ones that were there were ready to fight. And it was intense. It was a lot of rivalry. There was a lot of competition. There was some talking, and people really, really enjoyed it. So that was one of our bigger divisions. There was some good competition in the youth black belt grands this year. Saw some names of some people that have been up and coming for a time, and there was some really good competition in those grand championship divisions on Saturday. So those are the two that stuck out in my mind the most. I'm not sure. I was back and forth all over the place. So half the time, I don't think people realize as promoters, you don't always get to watch your own event. You're running around doing a lot of stuff. But those are the two that I got to watch and spend some time with, and those stood out to me the most.
Yeah, and I would echo the same sentiment for team fighting, for sure. But there was one thing that stood out this weekend that really, I guess, solidified the fact that the people that came had a blast. And that was once the individual sparring divisions are over with and their grands were over with, and we had 2 overall winners, a lightweight with Bailey Murphy and then the heavyweight with Kevin Walker, the fighters began to trick in the middle of the center ring and just had a blast. And I mean, it's just one of those things that maybe wouldn't have happened in, a normal setting, but because of the conditions of the event and not a lot of folks left around at the end of the day, they had a big time. It was great. So that's what's kind of stood out to me from the weekend. That and just everybody being so awesome.
Absolutely. Very cool. And that's a cool moment to just think about 2 of the top point fighters in our sport, Kevin Walker, Bailey Murphy, and then obviously all of their great competitors that were at the event, being point fighters and then tricking after the fact. So for some of our viewers who aren't within the sport karate world that may not know what tricking is basically an acrobatic aspect of martial arts. It's rooted in martial arts, consists of a wide variety of difficult acrobatic kicks mixed in with some gymnastics, a little bit of parkour, and several elements of movement. And it's typically something that forms and weapons competitors, the performers, do the most. So it's very interesting to hear that there were a lot of fighters who are typically kind of in a separate world from the forms and weapons competitors at a lot of tournaments. It's cool to hear that they were participating in that and tricking and just having a good time. And speaking of having a good time, now we're going to shift. Pretend that you're not promoters for a moment. And on this show, I always like to bring up the names of some of the athletes. You mentioned Bailey Murphy, Kevin Walker, the winners of the team fights, Team Straight Up, with Bailey Murphy once again, Brandon Ballou, Romani Alicia, right? So as a fan of the sport, what were some of the things where you were just looking around the range, you saw maybe one incredible performance, or there was a particular fighting matchup that you really enjoyed? Forget the fact that you had to run the whole thing. Let's talk about just as a fan of the sport. Was there anything that really caught your attention from a particular competitor?
Well, one thing I wanted to say that people don't always, I mean, before I get into the names that everybody really knows, I want to say that in our underbelt divisions, there were some heated sparring matches down there in the the smaller ballrooms downstairs. So let's not ever downplay the fact that our underbelt people are the rising stars of the sport, and there were some really solid matches down there. It was kind of fun to watch. But I will say that during the team fight, and the thing is, the hard part about teams is if you're not really there, you're not really paying attention or seeing the live scoring, you don't always see who wins the individual match. And then there were some real, like the solid match between Kevin and Bailey in team fighting. I think there was been some commentary about seeing who actually won that particular fight, because it was a really good matchup there at the end. And they fought, if I remember correctly, they fought in the semifinals, not in the finals.
Correct.
So so Team Straight Up versus the All-Star team, so to speak, where they fought in the semifinals. So that was a really good matchup for me. Watch, those guys are just so athletic and quick. Speaking of Kevin, I want to go back to our previous point about the tricking thing. A lot of people don't know that Kevin Walker is a phenomenal forms competitor.
Yes.
And if you've not seen him, I've seen him compete in some regional events around. He does a great job. Doesn't quite get, he's known as a fighter, but all of your martial arts are rooted in your forms, and how you do that. And he's a great competitor. And if you ever get a chance to see him compete in that you're really witnessing something great there, because that's truly something that makes somebody a great martial artist, is their ability to step out of both genres and really be successful at it. And he's good at that. But to answer your question, that was one of the fights that I enjoyed the most.
Well, for me, there was a couple of things. Obviously, in the team fights as well, but this was in the final match with Trey Lazenby and Brandon, was a very, very, very great fight from a perspective that everyone thought Brandon would just, be fast and be all over him, but it just didn't play out that way. I mean, Trey was able to basically just, neutralized everything that Brandon was doing and kept them in the match. And that match was a great match from a good old boys Atlanta club perspective to fighting, a top team and Straight Up. But I have to say that the one thing that stood out to me the most as I watched from a spectator was to see people that maybe would have never had a chance to be, in the top and with no seeds. It was, open for everybody. So there were some people that, I saw a guy do black belt weapons that was a phenomenal weapons competitor. That would have, he would have been hanging with anybody in any of the world events that, emerged out of there with a great performance and actually won the division. So it was an awesome thing to see those type of competitors too get that opportunity to, show what they got. So.
Absolutely. Very cool. So yes, an excellent opportunity to highlight some competitors that you don't always see up on the stage. And you can see that, I believe you can get almost all of the live stream footage from the Battle of Atlanta by going to Point Fighter Live, was doing a lot of y'all's live streams, right? So if you head on over to the Point Fighter Live page by Alex Reyes, you can see some of the junior grands that we're talking about here, the team fighting, some of those overall grand championship fights. And I've been watching a few of them, but I still need to go back and watch the entirety of the event. Because what you guys are saying, I'm hearing a lot of that echoing throughout the sport karate world, just people being really impressed with the level of competition they saw, particularly in the point fighting, but also in the forms and weapons divisions as well. Now,
I want to add something real quick. There was a big piece like that we forget sometimes that you don't get to see a lot through these virtual tournaments or other things, was during the team fighting, it got heated. And I have to say, I don't think it's always a Battle of Atlanta unless there's a heated fight during the team fights. And, there was a point where your dad was like running in the ring to like separate fighters, So as the coordinator of the event, it's like, oh man, I think people missed, I think the fighters missed the energy and the hype that comes with these fights. And as from a spectator point of view, that was something everybody missed out on. If you weren't in that ballroom watching those fights going on, you missed just plain excitement. It was something that we haven't seen since February. So it was pretty cool.
That's awesome. And a lot of people don't know this. Team fighting is actually, and forms and weapons competitors will think this is blasphemy that I'm saying this. Team fighting is my favorite event to watch at a tournament. I am strictly a weapons competitor. That's what I've been known for forever, for those of you that are watching. But team fighting is my favorite event because of exactly what you're describing. The emotion, the hype, the ability level, being able to go back and forth. And I see you want to continue there, but I'm going to add in one thing just for our audience. He mentioned my dad. So my dad, Eric Rudolph, is one of the coordinators of the Battle of Atlanta, helps put on the event. And he does not quite have the stature that I have. So he sometimes gets in a little, quite literally, over his head when he's trying to break up fights and things like that. My dad will probably hate that I'm saying that.
But you know what? He held us. We were all set back. Oh, there goes Eric. He's going to take care of this. Okay. So nobody else had to step in. And, going back to you're talking about being a weapons competitor. We forgot to mention that Rashad Eugene broke out his new weapon this weekend. I don't know if anybody got a chance to see that, but it was a custom broom that he did a weapons form with, and it was interesting for sure.
I think interesting is certainly the right word. He's somebody that's always got a lot of creativity. But anyway, now speaking of creativity, you guys did introduce some new divisions with your point fighting under the moniker Battle Mania. I'm pulling out my notes here to pull up what all these divisions were. You had double elimination sparring, tag team sparring, which I'm really interested in. I want to hear how that turned out. And then as well as continuous sparring. So tell us a bit about these Battle Mania events. Where did the inspiration come from and how did they go?
So, if people don't know a lot maybe about sport karate, sometimes I kind of backtrack this up. Forms and weapons competitor can compete in up to almost 8 or 10 divisions, depending on what you sign up for. And traditionally, the point fighters haven't had near that opportunity. They have, point sparring in their weight class or their regular point sparring division. We have open weight now, which has been, been around for a few years, and then maybe team fighting. And that's it. And that's all or maybe you do continuous if you offer that. So we decided, what else can we offer for the people who just want to come out and fight? Besides, you're coming all the way to Battle of Atlanta from who knows where. It's often an expensive trip, and especially in the summertime when it's a normal Battle of Atlanta. So we want to make their trip worth their while. So we decided, let's offer a package for fighters where they can do 4 divisions for one price, and this is in addition to point fighting or open weight or teams. And we offered, like you said, the continuous. We offered tag team, mixed doubles, and then double elimination. And we actually had, it was actually one of the more popular things for the younger kids to get involved with, because they just want to come out and they want to spar. That's all it was. The tag team, I didn't get a chance to see that one. My dad probably can tell you more about it than I did, but from what I heard, it was a lot of excitement and a lot of fun. And we called it Battle Mania. Joe Greenhall actually asked me this question this weekend. He said, "Battle Mania, where did you get that?" I said, well, again, I'm just trying to throw a title on this all-inclusive package, but it kind of hails back to the first few Battle of Atlantas, to the first kickboxing events that Joe Corley produced, called Karate Mania. So that's where we went a little bit of throwback to Joe in the Karate Mania days. So just kind of paying a little bit of a tribute to the fighters out there. So, and my dad, you saw the tag team. I didn't get a chance to see it. So.
Yeah, the tag team sparring really was just a fun event, especially for the kids. They just had all kinds of fun. The whole concept is just point sparring, but if your opponent was in a little bit of trouble, you could tag him out or her out, and get in there and try to catch back up. So it was just a lot of fun. And the strategies they played, and honestly, in some cases, they were just sort of made up teams that put together, a couple of weeks ago or whatever. But they had so much fun, and it was the most popular thing that we had there, I think, that weekend for the people that didn't get a chance to see it, was the tag team sparring. And the mixed doubles was a lot of fun too, because you had to have male and female. And we're even looking forward to maybe a little twist next year and do maybe a mixed doubles tag team sparring, and see how that works out. But just trying to make it fun for the competitor, and also, like he said, was to give the competitors another opportunity to spar. And with the mix, even with the double eliminations, it was kind of cool, because you had one division, they only had two competitors. So normally, if you only have two competitors, you have one match and that's it.
Mhm.
But in this particular case, you had two competitors, and one competitor won the first round, second competitor won the second round, so they had to be a third round. So they got to fight three times.
Mhm.
So it's pretty awesome, for those that weren't there. It was something that we tried, and it was successful, and it'll be on the agenda for the future.
Absolutely. And that's another thing that I think that a lot of competitors and fans of sport karate will always appreciate about a tournament and its promoters is when you go out of your way to do extra things for the athletes, as the Battle of Atlanta has done for a very long time, right? Especially in point fighting, we're talking about Battle Mania and offering all of these additional opportunities for the fighters to fight. But we go back, pre-COVID, back when life was normal. I still remember Battle of Atlanta hosted, was it an open weight? That was like some crazy $5,000 grand prize for the open weights that I believe Trevor Nash won. Is that right? So,
That's correct.
You guys have been doing great things for the athletes for a very long time. And as one of the athletes, I'm extremely appreciative of that. And as a fan of point fighting, I love watching that. So I appreciate what you guys are doing there. Now we're going to go ahead and shift off of the karate stuff, and we're going to shift to the stuff that nobody likes to talk about, but that a lot of people are wondering. But I'm actually excited to talk about this because of how much positive feedback I heard about how the Battle of Atlanta handled the COVID-19 situation throughout all the health protocols. We could do an entire show just about all the different protocols that were in place because you guys were so thorough and did such a good job with it. But maybe talk us through what were some of the highlights of those health and safety protocols that allowed you to have a successful event.
So we back this up. This is an enormous process to put in place, and we had help. There was no way this was just coming out of our heads. So we consulted with some of the other NASCAR promoters. We consulted with our attorneys. I consulted with an independent infection prevention consultant, and combined with all those things, we came up with a plan. And this is something I do in my normal everyday 9-to-5 job at school is constantly working with keeping kids safe. So this was not new to me for this year. In that sense, I've been working with it pretty much since the end of May, trying to put this together. But I will say that number one, first and foremost, the competitors that came to Battle of Atlanta this year, they did not come and they didn't wear their masks out of a sense of fear. And I want that to be very clear. They wear their masks out of a sense of respect. A sense of respect for each other, a sense of respect for the event, a sense of respect that we can have a tournament and compete. And we really did not have, and we had people that told us, I don't really like to wear a mask, but you know what? I'm going to wear a mask for you guys before we can have a tournament. They said that, and they were honest, but they wore their masks pretty much all the time, except when the kids were competing. I'm sure there's probably, people that think differently, but I'm being honest. People were very, very respectful in that sense. They were very thankful that we were having an event. Everyone went through temperature checks both days. I think we gave out wristbands for each session to kind of minimize the number of people in each room. I bet we gave out 1,000 wristbands of different colors. It seemed like, I don't know how the ladies at registration kept up, but they did. And there were signs everywhere explaining everything. But it was just, honestly, go back to what my dad said earlier in the podcast here, was that, we set up 4 different ballrooms. The hotel set up, chairs and quads of 4, there were 4 here, 4 here, 4 here, there. And they were spaced out all over. And we literally, all of us looked at it that first day and went, there's no way we're going to keep these chairs separated. But I promise you, after 2 solid days of competition, not one spectator chair ever got moved. People sat on the floor around each other. They sat in the groups that they were supposed to. Every once in a while we had to make a little reminder. Hey, you need to make sure you got your mask on. You're done with the competition. Please put your mask back on. And people did it. They complied. At no point in time during the competition did we ever have an issue with any single person. And they were just so thankful to be able to have an event. It was a lot of planning, a lot more than we normally did. In fact, to the point where it took some brain shifting to remember that you were still running a tournament that has rules and you got to follow these rules. Along with the COVID rules, there's, you still got to wear elbow pads in sparring, or all these different things. And it was just sometimes a little bit of a shift, plus it's been a hot minute since we had a tournament. So it's just kind of getting back into the groove of things. But I will say that I will have to give an enormous amount of credit to the people who attended Battle of Atlanta for making the plan work. And I've given you a few examples of reminders we've had to give, but we didn't have to give many. It was super impressive. And like I said, it was out of a sense of respect. And that's something that, this industry prides itself on, is that we have competitors who are very respectful of each other. And that was important to see.
Absolutely. Very cool. I think that's a great summary. And then Mr. Greg, anything to add to that?
I can't really add too much to it. He did a great job of summarizing everything that took place. And I would also categorize it as a lot of respect. And it's just amazing, really, to know that everybody played a role in that too, not just our staff, but all the officials were, very, very much a part of, making sure that everybody, were doing the protocol that they needed to be doing. And quite honestly, I don't know if I've ever been to a tournament where there was such a separation between the competitor and the spectator. I think that's why sometimes you see such a kind of an empty looking ring when you see some of the actual video from the event, was because the spectators stayed out of the ring area. There were basically only the competitors in there and the officials, which it really looked, real professional and, like you said, very respectful. And I think that's the thing that just stood out to me the most this weekend.
Well, we also, and I have to add this, one of the things that was also really big that we played into was the fact that we broke up the schedule into sessions. And those sessions, and we made it very clear we would not start a session until we had cleared the ballroom and had gone through and disinfected and cleaned and picked up the trash. I mean, even something simple as that. And there were times we were able to get a little bit of a head start as some divisions would wind down in one ring, and we'd just be down to one ring. We'd go ahead and get a little start. So things moved a little more swiftly than we had anticipated. But breaking it up that way really did minimize the number of competitors in each ballroom, gave us an opportunity to clean. It was just a great team effort between our staff, like he said, our officials, the competitors, the hotel, and people were, everybody signed a waiver. There was no arguing, there was no complaining, there was really no, even if people had personal feelings about masks or no masks, that's a big political thing. No one brought it to the table this weekend. It was amazing to watch. And I loved the harmony that was there at the event. Everybody had a great time. And that was pretty much like you said, all the best parts about it. So.
Yeah. No, by the way, just so you can understand something, that based on the competitors and the spectators' feedback, you'll see sessions again in the future.
Very cool. That's interesting. Do you mean like in regard to during other tournaments that happened with COVID, or do you think that this is something that even once the pandemic is over, the session format may continue?
Well, I think once the pandemic is over, especially at the Battle of Atlanta, the sessions will continue.
Very cool. And then Toby, it looked like you might have had something to add.
I was just going to say, yeah, it's definitely for COVID for sure. It was very efficient and had very good things. But we learned a new piece. Like, this is crazy. I guess sometimes you learn pieces of information that you wouldn't have thought of earlier had you not been put in a certain situation. Mm-hmm. And the competitors really appreciated the fact that they knew more specifically what time they had to show up, mm-hmm. as opposed to sitting around and waiting all day. And that was, that was good for us as well. So.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No, I agree with that. I mean, me just thinking about it, I hadn't realized it until now, but that is one of the problems with a lot of sport karate tournaments is you show up at 8 or 9 a.m. and then you're there all day. You may not compete till 2 in the afternoon, depending on the event, how it's running and all that. And so as a competitor, I can see how that'd be nice to know, like, hey, come in at 11 a.m. You're going to be competing by, 11:30 or what have you. I think that's really cool. So it sounds like a lot of things went really, really well, which makes me very excited to hear. Should make any sport karate fan very excited to hear. But even though things went well, of course, as a promoter, there can be challenges, right? So with this new set of protocols to navigate, was there maybe one or two that you found to be a little bit more challenging to either organize or enforce than maybe you would have expected before the event?
Well, it sounds nitpicky a little bit, but trying to funnel everybody into the temperature checks at first was a little bit of a challenge, mm-hmm. just because it was just people weren't sure where to go at first because it was something new. And I guess people are just used to going straight to our registration window. Mm-hmm. But after about 30 minutes or so, people kind of, us herding people towards where they needed to go, people just fell in line and did. That was one little thing. There were a few moments where social distancing had to be reminded. And I remember one fight in the underbelt division, people got a little tense. We had to stop, everybody would go back and sit down, and they did. But, it's like anytime with fighting, and it wasn't crazy. I mean, I'm making it sound like it was horrible. It wasn't. It's just people rushed up to the barricade area, and we're right there. And I'm like, no, y'all need to go back and sit down. We did that, and they were fine. So, but other than that, I mean, like I said, you would be amazed, because I mean, people didn't like linger in the lobby. They didn't really hang out here or there. When they came into the ballrooms, they sat in their little pod. They sat on the floor. They sat in the chairs beside them. Only the competitors were in the competition area for the most part. I mean, or a coach that had a coach pass, the officials, and that was it. And it was realistically, it was only the competitors who were competing at that particular moment. You didn't have people standing around waiting for 2 divisions from now and there were those challenges we were expecting weren't there, because people were just so appreciative and respectful that they were able to have an event, that they just followed everything we asked them to do in the COVID plan and in the guidelines that we created. And, we were just super thankful that happened. So.
Very cool. That's awesome. And then Mr. Greg, anything to add, or did he cover it?
No, he covered it very well. I mean, it was awesome. I mean, I guess the difficult part was planning, set up, putting everything in place, not knowing what to expect, but then to, get the results of people, really behaving and acting the way they did with such respect all weekend was just great to see.
Absolutely. And the primary reason that I want to bring up some of the challenges is because I want our viewers to understand the bravery that it takes for a promoting staff to proceed with an event in such an unprecedented time, and, have the courage to say, hey, we're going to try to make this work. And if things don't work, we'll figure it out. And you guys did that very, very well. And I have a lot of respect for both of you for doing that. Another thing that gives me a whole lot of respect for both of you is that you were once again generous enough to host the Competitive Edge Camp at the Battle of Atlanta. Granted, it was a little bit of a different format this year, so many of our viewers may know of Competitive Edge from our competition team, who's become very successful with Team Demo, and then also individual competitors. Connor Roberts, one of our members, was the overall Forms Grands winner in the junior division at the 2020 Battle of Atlanta. But we also host the coaches, myself, Reed Presley, and Cole Presley. We host these camps that happen, and every summer our biggest camp is always at the Battle of Atlanta, or has been at the Battle of Atlanta for many years now, and we're very appreciative that you guys have allowed us to do that and given us that platform. Even though this year was a little bit different because I wasn't able to make it, we actually had me on a FaceTime call on a TV screen with a speaker, and I was teaching virtually to a group of students that was there in person, which I believe is the first martial arts seminar of its kind to have, 2 of the instructors be live in person, one of the instructors coming in on a video call. So that was really cool. We were maybe setting some standards that had never been set before. So that was exciting to be a part of. But as promoters, what benefits do you see when a tournament decides to hold a camp like that? And also just for like sport martial artists in general, talk about some of the general benefits of attending a camp like a Competitive Edge camp at the Battle of Atlanta.
Well, personally, I always felt like that. I always looked at tournaments on the national scene. The NASCA big tournaments are more of events as a whole, not necessarily just a tournament. One of the things we always try to take the mindset with is that we want the competitor experience to be all encompassing, in the sense that if you're going to travel to our event, we want to give you as much martial arts experience as possible, because it does cost money, and let's be fair about that. And so, when you guys started the Competitive Edge camp, it's 5 or 6 years ago now. I can't even keep up with how long ago it was. I think that experience for the competitor is invaluable. I mean, we've literally watched not only you guys grow up, because some of y'all were just barely adults when you first started, or you may have still been juniors back then. Yep. We watched the kids that have come up through there become, the next generation of martial arts superstars, or hopefully be superstars. They really do, they're focused, and they bring a lot of value to the learning experience. Plus, I think one of the things that you kind of always tend to forget, you're not just there to get the competitive edge skill set. You also meet a ton of new friends. That's a great way on the front end of a tournament to get to know a few people in a very, comfortable setting. It's not a competition setting. And you get to know some people that you might see in your division or just see around the hotel or the tournament itself. And that in and of itself is one of the reasons why people travel the karate circuits, is that they have a lot of great friends. And there's no other better place to meet than at one of these camps. So I've seen a lot of value that has come out of the camp over the last few years with the growth in the competitors and that friendship piece. So my dad may have a different take on it, but that's what I see. So.
Cool.
No, not really. I mean, you touched on it. I think the relationships that people make through things like a camp and things very similar to those seminars, whatever they might be, because they're all feel like they're in this little place at this time. They're learning. They want to be better. They want to be the next big thing. So they have something in common already, and it just automatically forms that bond. And I know that a lot of friends have been made in camps like the Competitive Edge camp, and again, those competitors just seem to keep those relationships throughout pretty much the rest of their life. And you see them hanging out together in their little groups at the tournaments, and they have fun, and it's good, clean fun, and good, healthy fun, and requires very little parental supervision. So it's just an awesome thing that comes from the camps and the events themselves.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons that as the coaches of Team Competitive Edge and obviously the instructors of the seminars, myself, Reed, and Cole are always so proud of when we put on these events, is exactly the sentiment that both of you are echoing about, being able to provide a platform for these kids to interact and make friendships and to be able to form these, as you mentioned, lifelong bonds that can be formed through the martial arts. That's one of the things that's truly special about it. And we really appreciate the opportunity to do that at the Battle of Atlanta. And if anybody listening is interested in Competitive Edge in particular, we also have winter camp that is going to be coming up this December. We are considering a virtual format. Not that the details aren't completely ironed out on that yet, but stay tuned to more details about the Competitive Edge winter camp featuring myself, Reed Presley, and Cole Presley. And now we're going to go ahead. Speaking of events to come in the future, let's talk about the 2021 Battle of Atlanta, which I am already super excited to attend, both as a competitor, a coach, a fan of sport karate. I can't wait to be there. Do we have any dates yet? And if we do have dates, what are some other things that we can be excited about and look forward to?
Oh my word! I guess to be a really big question. I'm not sure. It's half of that stuff I'm not sure ready to spill the beans on. But yes, let's just start with, we do have a date. It's the Father's Day weekend again. That is the current date we have on the books. I believe it's June 17th through the 19th in 2021. And still be at our same hotel, same venue, which I think we're at that hotel at least another 2 years for sure. We have our contract through. So we have a lot of things in the works. I'm sure you know of one of them. Probably don't want to. One of the things we're going to be doing next year that's a little bit different, besides our Battle Mania package, we're going to hopefully get to have our night shows again. And I'm working on something new for Friday night fights that I'll be glad to share once that gets finalized. I'm not ready to quite share that yet, but I've been working on it with a few people this past weekend. So once that gets locked down, we'll be sharing our new thing for Friday night fights coming up next summer. And then I actually have a really cool thing I'm trying to work on for the Battle Zone Championships that I also am not ready to share yet, but once I get it locked down, I'll have it ready to share. The one thing I do want to talk about though is on Thursday next year we are going to have the ProMac Championships for our regional circuit ProMac at the Battle of Atlanta, and this is just mixing things up a little bit from the point chasing way to win an overall championship in the league. Instead, we've broken our region up into 2 regions, and the winners of each region in each division will earn seeds for the ProMac Championships. And the ProMac Championships will determine the overall winners for the year in ProMac. So that is one of the things we are going to do a little bit differently next year to add something to the event. And trying to think if there's anything else we wanted to talk about right now. Am I missing anything?
No, you're not missing anything other than, we have, did a lot of evaluations about, you know, time, efficiency, everything that goes into an event. So I think that the 2021 battle will definitely bring in, the sessions will be back. They'll be a little different as we won't clear ballrooms and clean and all that stuff in between the sessions. But we will definitely, you'll definitely see the sessions. Um, you'll definitely see a little more efficient way of running probably in less rings than it normally takes for some of the larger events. So we're really excited about all of that. And yes, there's a lot of great things sort of in the works that we just aren't ready to share at this point, but we should be able to share fairly soon. So yeah, we've been planning the 2020 battle really since about the 1st of August, because that's when we normally start planning it. And not realizing that, this is September and we're really only about 9 months away from the next one. Mm-hmm. So, right. Yes, a lot of plans.
Absolutely. And it's okay that you're keeping some secrets from us, because here on Black Belt Magazine, all updates about all things sport karate, including the prestigious Battle of Atlanta, will be coming through our website, blackbeltmag.com. All you got to do is click that little hamburger menu on the side of the website, click on Sport Karate. You can get all the latest news and updates about Sport Karate. And of course, that includes the Battle of Atlanta and any new announcements that come out about the 2021 event. And I also want to speak just briefly for our viewers that, again, maybe aren't as into the sport karate world. I want to talk about ProMac just a little bit, right? Because ProMac was originally founded as just a regional league, but has quickly grown to be a prominent, I would consider it to be a national league. You certainly get competitors coming from all over the country to be able to compete in those events. And as a coach and instructor, ProMac is always a league that I recommend to my up-and-coming competitors that want to see what competition is like, because I think ProMac sets such an incredible standard for how martial arts tournaments should be run, from the rules to the way that you organize the events to the way that you make the rings look professional with the event tech scoring and everything else that goes into putting on a ProMac event. And that's one thing that I'm very grateful to everybody that has helped make ProMac happen, from the two of you, of course, my dad, Ronnie Presley, and several great promoters that have done an excellent job making ProMac what it is today. It's something that our sport really needed, was to have that type of a league where competitors can begin developing and make a name for themselves and become great competitors. And we still see great world-class competitors competing at the ProMac events as well. And so I just wanted to give ProMac a little bit of a shout out, because even though this show is about Battle of Atlanta, that's something that the two of you are clearly heavily involved in. And it's another great project that you guys have been on. So with that being said, are there any closing comments from either of you, whether it be about Battle of Atlanta, ProMac, or your thoughts on sport karate and martial arts in general?
No, I mean, I've got a few things I was just thinking of that we said as we've gone on. It's, it was great this past weekend to see people out and about, at the tournament, even if it wasn't the same as always, wasn't quite the production and the I guess chaos that sometimes attends a karate tournament. It was still great to see people. It was great to see people out and competing, and they took a chance on us, and we appreciate that. I would like to say a few thank yous if I can, just kind of give some people a shout out, because there were some people that really did make a difference in this year's Battle of Atlanta. I would like to thank Aaron Hensley with Premier Martial Arts. He was very supportive of our event this year. Aisha Whitfield with Next Level down in Lithonia, Georgia. Her school was super supportive, especially in our underbelt divisions. That was a really big deal. Michael Williams, also from the Atlanta area. Josh Horowitz with Dojo. He was one of our sponsors this year, and it was super important. I'd like to thank all of our staff. I mean, people that don't ever get credit, like number one, my wife, who runs registration. Her and Carrie Garrett from Arkansas just sat there for 2 days and worked on that. Your dad and Ronnie Presley are, running our coordinating our tournament. A lot of people know them, but they don't know that we have two great people in Kevin Hammond and Marilyn Ader, who really do run the tournament and get things done. All of our ProMac promoters who showed up to judge and officiate were just fantastic. I have a special thank you to Patricia Pinkston from Premier Martial Arts over there in Augusta, Georgia, for literally volunteering to do one of the toughest jobs and do temperature checks all weekend. That was really, really an important job that got done. Big thank you to the hotel. They did an outstanding job of helping us keep the place clean, making sure things were sanitized. I mean, Joe Greenhall for being very supportive of us this year. I want to say thank you to him. I'm probably skipping somebody. My dad's probably taking notes. So, but I don't want to leave somebody out. But I mean, Randy McCauley. I don't know Randy, but if you do know Randy, you know Randy. He helps make the Battle of Atlanta run. So those are the people I wanted to thank most importantly. And like I said, we appreciate your support, and we appreciate, the time to speak with everybody. We do have some ProMac events coming up, and if you're interested in regional competition, it's a great place to dip your toes in the water. The competition's increasing every year. It's not, we're not NASCAR World Tour yet, but it is a great place if you want to be a NASCAR champion to start, getting out there and paying your dues. And that's what you need to do. And that's very, very important. So, Dad, you have something else you want to tell everybody?
I do want to give a big shout out to Fighter and Top 10 for supporting us as they always do. They were not available to provide us with official shirts this year, obviously because of the COVID-19 situation. You couldn't get them from where they normally get them from. But, the other thing that I want to give a big shout out to is I want to give a big shout out to Joe Corley for believing in us, believing in me. It's really tough to hand a legendary event like the Battle of Atlanta over to someone else, and trust that they'll keep your legacy going. And he's been very complimentary of us, and showed us a lot of love since that time, and been very thing. But other than that, we're looking at Battle of Atlanta 53, and my question to you guys is, are you ready to battle?
Awesome. What a better way to end the show. Thank you both so much for your time, and really a beautiful testimony there at the end to all of the people that helped make the Battle of Atlanta happen. And that's one thing that I really hope that anybody that is in the sport karate world that is watching this podcast understands is not just the Battle of Atlanta, but every tournament. I mean, it takes a village, and it takes a ton of people that are very dedicated to sport martial arts and what we do to make these things happen. And there's a lot of sacrifice that goes down. And so I really appreciate you taking the time to reach out and thank all those people individually. And I think that also fully expresses to anybody that you did miss, if you did, that you're thankful for them as well. So once again, thank the both of you for joining the podcast today. Really appreciate your time. Thank you to our viewers for tuning in and listening to episode 36 of the Jax Rudolph podcast. It's been a wild ride. It's crazy that we have that many episodes, and we're going to keep coming back at you here on Black Belt Magazine every single week. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I'm Jackson Rudolph, and I'll see you next time.